Democracy, in theory, is a clean mechanism of the public will. In practice, it's a marketplace where attention is bought, outrage is engineered, and candidates are polished into something palatable enough to be able to sell to the electorate. Unless you're Fianna Fáil, of course. Welcome to the Atlantic Current. I'm Vince Martin from Wall Street, Maine, here as always with Tull McAdoo from the Irish Politics newsletter. Tull, that passage, of course, comes from your most recent article on spending in the Irish by-election. I was thinking about trying the West Cork accent. I think for everybody's sake, it's probably a good thing I didn't.
Well, I'd struggle doing a good old-fashioned Southern boy accent as well, Vincent. So you're not alone with accents there. And hello, listeners, and hello, new listeners. Well, Vincent, you looked over the numbers and you seem to be a little bit surprised. Is that fair to say about how little Irish people spend on their elections? Is that fair judgment?
Yeah, I mean, it jumps out. It jumps out that you wrote an entire article, which was a great article. We're going to discuss it here. We're also going to talk about a couple key elections here in the States, some other topics, including a missing U.S. congressman we'll get to if we have time. Although knowing us, we're probably going to run out of time because we got to do our patented detours, right?
Yes, of course. And I may add to our listeners in Ireland who are quite aware at the moment that we're in the midst of a massive heat wave, Vincent.
I saw that, yeah.
You would struggle to distinguish between West Cork and Tuscany now at the moment. Maybe the only way you could differentiate between both parts of the world would be the quality of your stout, I'd imagine. So it is balmy weather over here, so it's something we're not used to. Everybody's going around lobster-like. They're catching fire. It's an unusual weather event for Ireland at the moment, and hopefully it'll be like that when you come over here. So
no, hopefully not. We're leaving North Carolina in the summer. We're looking for 52 and rainy, baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you'll get that anyway. Somewhere. There's no doubt about that.
What's been your high temperature during this wave?
So we got up to 30 degrees. What's that Fahrenheit?
So that's like 86, right?
Yeah.
Oh my! Wow! I didn't realize like that actually happened in Ireland. To be honest with you, like ever, like in recorded history.
So during the week on Wednesday, we broke records for the highest temperatures ever.
Oh wow! Okay,
for the month of May. I haven't slept in the last 4 days, Vincent. So my eyes are hanging out of my head. I'm like a fella going to work every morning and after 20 pints, I'm just not sleeping because I'm not used to this heat. You know,
is there any sense for you or for at least a few Irish people that it's kind of nice that it's or is it just too much for you?
No, it's. I mean, I love it. Everybody loves it.
I got you. Okay.
It's great. I mean, when you're in the likes of West Cork or anywhere with a big, massive beach, sandy beach in front of you, you could be in Italy, you could be in Spain, you could be in North Africa. You wouldn't know any different. It's
right. That's
just
fair.
A little bit greener, you know. But
it's just a beach vacation for an entire country. Just having to roll in off the Atlantic.
And this is what happens. I have to say, our transport infrastructure comes under fair strain because the whole of the country departs for the beaches. And there was a scene in Holt last week, and it was like Dunkirk or something like that. You know, there was people all over the beaches. I thought,
oh, good Lord! Yeah,
you know, I thought the Americans were invading to bring us democracy or something. Then people couldn't get off the beaches, and there was just chaos. Ireland's one of these countries that if the weather's really bad, it affects traffic terribly, and if the weather's really good, it affects traffic terribly also.
Yeah, we've seen bad weather in Ireland. One of my favorite stories was my wife and I were out in Clifton. It wasn't winter. It was probably October, something like that. So we did the Sky Road like Yank tourists do. And then we took some back roads and we were just bouncing around on the beaches. And we pulled up to go see a beach. It was probably low 50s as we measure it, 12, 14, something like that by your guys' standards. We get to the beach. The wind is blowing about 87 miles an hour. I mean, it is just whipping. And my wife I'm watching it. I think it's great. The waves are just absolutely brutal, crashing in, sand's hitting you in the face. My wife is in like an actual winter ski parka, huddled in against me because this $400 engineered jacket is no match at all for Irish weather on the coast. And we're standing there watching this. She wants to go. And we look up and there, a woman comes walking up, probably in her late 40s, early 50s. And she's dressed not terribly winter-like, but she's dressed up and she walks up to the middle of the beach and she starts undressing. Okay. And she strips down to a one-piece bathing suit, and then she puts on a bathing cap and just goes swimming as if she was dipping into like a 75-degree hotel pool. It was the most astounding thing I've ever seen a human being do.
Vincent, that part of Galway is famous, for being quite windswept, and Clifton, Salt Hill, all that area. It's a thing during every hurricane you'll see on social media. You guarantee two things. Lots of people are going to be without electricity, and there's always some gobshite getting in swimming in that bath. And that's no word of a lie. Every time Salt Hill, Clifton, there's always some moron getting into the ocean in like Category 3 storms, bouncing around in the waves, and inevitably the Coast Guard has to be called or something like that.
Of course, yeah.
It's a running thing in Irish, especially in Galway, all the time in Galway. Some gobshite gets into the ocean, no matter how bad the weather is.
That's hysterical. This woman, by all accounts, really seemed to know what she was doing. And I'm sure like some doctor will tell you that's the healthiest thing ever and she'll live to like 110. But I'll be honest, if I had to do that every day, I'll give up the extra 30 years. No thanks. That looked brutal.
Exactly. And now we made a joke about going off piste, and we've gone off piste there.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah, and that lasted well. So to be clear, we are going to run out of time. Let's not pretend.
Let's get back to the elections, Vincent.
You're right.
What was your key takeaway from the Irish by-election and spending?
Reading your article, and I've been reading your stuff since before we ever met. I'm just sort of a huge fan of yours.
Thank you, Vincent.
Of course. But reading it as an American, it really was bizarre, because you went through the spending of all the parties. You said before we recorded, they updated it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
There's a little slide data dump at the end after people like you and everyone who followed you did their reports.
There was varying numbers between 260,000 and 300,000 spent. Okay. There's about 6 different publications came out with 6 different numbers, mine included, okay? They said varying between 260,000 and 300,000 or across Dublin Central and Galway West. So Fine Gael were in the ballpark of 76,000 euros. Okay. Fianna Fáil spent 48,000 euros, which is kind of funny considering.
Even I know that's not money well spent.
Yes. Sinn Féin spent 34,000 euros. Social Democrats spent 37,000 euros. They won a seat, of course, and Fine Gael, of course, won a seat. People Before Profit, who I had to have a good laugh at their candidates, said the government parties took a hell of a beating. This is despite Fine Gael actually winning a seat and doing pretty good in Dublin Central also.
And that was the first government seat won in what, like 12 years, something like that? It was a long time.
Since 2014, yes, 2014. Independent Ireland spent 15,000 euros on Noel Thomas in Galway West. They didn't compete in Dublin Central because I think they realised they're a largely rural party as opposed to a Dublin-centric party.
Right.
Ian 2 crashed and burned. They only spent 3,000 euros, the guts of, and they got nowhere also. Spending was higher in Galway for most parties because of the size of the constituency and the logistics. Poster, leaflets, local media ads.
Detours to the beach to go swimming.
That kind of thing, yes, of course. Yeah. I think cumulatively the party spent about 21,000 on newspaper or radio ads versus only 3,000 euros in Dublin, which was interesting. Wow. Paid social media ads are banned under not under EU rules, but Meta have banned political adverts because they say the EU rules there's too much red tape there and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So overall, money doesn't win seats alone. As we said, Fianna Fáil spent 50k and got nothing. Absolutely nothing. And what you saw, a trend was there also was that as the race went on, the longer it went on, you could see parties pulling money from those constituencies and piling them into constituencies where they were more competitive.
Right, of course. Yeah.
That happened. Sinn Féin, you could see that happening in their timeline of their expenses and stuff like that,
Yeah, I mean, American political parties do that too. There are always articles, for the midterms. There's an article in early October, the Republican Congressional Committee stopped advertising for this candidate because they realize it's a lost cause. So the structure of all what you're talking about is quite familiar to an American. That's not the bizarre part. It's the numbers that really are bizarre to an American. like you said, I mean, the high estimate of the total is 300,000 euros. So that's right about 350,000 US dollars. This sounds awful. I sound like the worst yank in the world, but it's just such a tiny number relative to what we have here. We just had a primary for the Republican Party in Texas.
Yeah.
Most expensive primary in history. There's $129 million spent on that primary. So like just having numbers in the hundreds of thousands in an article, like the U.S. press doesn't write articles about a couple $100,000 in spending because that's what we do for like, everything. That's almost like just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I mean, the real lesson, of course, when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of euros or, $129 million is the oldest one in the book, is that throwing money at voters sometimes is about as effective as throwing holy water at a stone,
Yeah.
Particularly maybe perhaps in the United States. Over the years, I know how many times I've read Texas is in play for the Democrats.
Oh, yeah, they're doing it again. Yeah.
And they seem to be doing it again. I saw something shocking, just to go off on a straight tangent.
Come on, we don't do that.
Stephen Miller said last night in a tweet, or was it during the week, sometime, that the Democrats have picked a transgender candidate to run in Texas. And this is not true at all. It's not even remotely true.
No. Yeah, the Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate seat from Texas, James Tallarico, is a devout Christian, albeit a left-leaning Christian, which is an increasingly endangered species in this country. And the winner of the Republican primary, Ken Paxton, we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. He has, shall we say, some baggage. He has a little bit of a history. He professes to be a Christian, but he is one of those Republican politicians who professes Christianity and does absolutely nothing at all that aligns with any of its virtues. That, unfortunately, is not an endangered species here in the U.S. So it's very clear that the Republican strategy with Paxton, who has this history of corruption and adultery and all these things, is to attack Tallarico as basically not a real man, not a real Texan. Now, if you're on social media and you've seen some of the cringeworthy posts that the Democrats have already put out of him, for instance, trying to eat a giant beef rib in a Texas shirt, and it just looks like it just looks awful. It's reminiscent of Dukakis in the Tank for older American political listeners. It looks ridiculous. It looks so staged. So they're trying to call him like low T Tallarico and basically say he's not a real man. And I think Miller's tweet is another angle of that, right? I don't think he's trying to literally say that he's secretly transgender. It's I guess you could say a bigoted way of implying that he's not a real man. He doesn't count. He's not a real man or a real Texan.
We have an equivalent here in Europe, and we'll post it on a Substack. A couple of years ago, Ed Miliband was trying to prove he was man of the people by having a bacon sandwich, and he having his photograph taken, and it was a hot mess, to be perfectly honest. And I think that trying to eat that bacon sandwich for the media did more harm to his political party than actually anything else, any of his policies did or anything like that.
Yeah, it's always funny when those things backfire. The famous one with Dukakis that I referenced, that was when he was running for the president in 1988, and he got in a tank and put on a helmet. And Dukakis is about 5'4", and everybody joked instantly that he looked like Snoopy from the old cartoon with the helmet on and the straps. Like, it just looked ridiculous. How much it matters, you never know, but it definitely got a ton of coverage, so much so that people, old people, I guess, still reference it to this day.
As I always like to say to my political people, it's rarely what it is, it's what it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have a question there for you, Vincent, and I have all kinds of notions in my head, but I'm going to ask the question. Where did this $129 million, which is the GDP, of Leitrim or Longford or something like that?
Yeah. The long version of the story is that in 2010, the Supreme Court gave a decision, which I'm sure many Irish listeners have heard referenced, which is Citizens United. Citizens United was a conservative nonprofit led by a guy named David Bossie, who was a lunatic anti-Hillary guy going back to when Clintons were actually in office in the 90s. Hillary Clinton famously said that there was a vast right-wing conspiracy against her, and she really wasn't wrong. There was an entire industry devoted to accusing Hillary of lesbianism, that Bill and Hillary ran drugs legitimately when he was governor of Arkansas, that she had Vince Foster, a White House deputy counsel who committed suicide. She was accused of his murder, entire books and movies. Bossie is just a lunatic. But in 2007, he produced a documentary called Hillary the Movie. I have not seen it. I can't imagine it's very good. IMDb does not give it a very high rating. I'm sure it's just a bat crazy recitation of some of the things we're talking about. But they wanted to put it on U.S. cable systems, and the cable system said, no, we won't air it because Hillary Clinton was running for president at the time, and under federal law then, that was considered electioneering.
Okay.
So Bossie and Citizens United sued. It made its way through the court system, up, and it got to the Supreme Court, which decided in 2010. And the Supreme Court, the 5-4 decision, very controversial, said the law prohibiting the documentary from being shown, the law around electioneering was unconstitutional. It was a violation of free speech.
Oh,
and what
free. Oh, free speech. It's free speech. Yeah. Okay, go on.
So what the Supreme Court said, and what was expanded by the lower courts, is basically there are no limits if you are independent of the campaign. And this gave rise to another thing Irish listeners no doubt have heard about called these super PACs.
Yes.
They can raise as much money as they want. They can raise donations of any size they want. You can give them $1 billion if you got it. They can contribute whatever they want. What they cannot do is coordinate with a specific candidate, and they cannot reroute those funds to a campaign. So since Citizens United, there's been an absolute explosion of money because people can contribute tens of millions of dollars to super PACs.
Billions in some cases?
I think, collectively it's billions. Yeah. Absolutely. So this is just an open flood of money, and it grows every year. And most of that 129 million is coming from those super PACs, because the campaigns can raise a lot of money, but they can't raise at scale. Their contributions are capped and things like that.
So what you're saying there, you and me can set up our own super PAC to back, somebody in New Jersey or Texas or whatever the case may be.
You can't say publicly we're backing somebody in New Jersey. You already violated the law. We are setting up a super PAC to espouse core principles about America that we believe in, and that is our right as free speech. We don't know any candidates. We're not thinking of any specific candidates at all.
Right, so it's as opaque as that. Okay, that's. Yeah. We can't even say we're pro Hillary or pro Bam or whatever.
No. As I understand it, that's where you really you trip up.
So you have to get a good copy editor, speechwriter like myself into
you have to
make the language very nuanced and ambiguous, but ambiguous, not as ambiguous that you don't know who they're talking about, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm looking, Koch brothers spent over $2 billion on U.S. elections and what they call, in inverted commas, political advocacy.
Yeah, well, that's what you call it. I didn't realize it was $2 billion. That's stunning. How about that?
$2 billion, yeah.
Even I didn't know that. I wouldn't have thought they cleared the $1 billion. So you're right. Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah.
So in 2024, the Koch, and we pronounce that the Koch?
That's pronounced Coke, oddly.
Coke. Okay,
I don't know why.
Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, I could have fun with that. In 2020,
I would not on our podcast make fun of people who have so much money that they can donate $2 billion to political candidates. Yeah. Even with American libel laws, let's just move on.
Yes, they might be able to hire a couple of Irish guys for a couple of bucks with guns and take me out instead.
Yeah, that's true.
In the 2024 electoral cycle, they raised $578 million and spent about $548 million. That's
stunning.
Not, that's not democracy, Vincent. How can, Joe Democrat in Texas that's donated $5 to the Democrat campaign to take it back from the Republicans and compete with that kind of money? That's not democracy.
Well, Joe Democrat, in this case, James Tallarico, is raising pretty significant sums himself. Not the
$129 million, is it?
Well, no, he's not going to have $129 million. What's really incredible is that the GOP establishment is furious at Trump for endorsing Paxton, who wound up winning because Paxton is a weaker candidate. And their insiders are going to the press talking about how much money it's going to cost the national GOP, how much money it's going to, as you were talking about, we do that here too, right? You pull money from races where it's less needed and put it in money where it's more needed. Well, the GOP now thinks they're going to have to spend a ton of money in Texas, and there have been people who said it's going to cost them as much as $250 million to try and defend this seat. Okay. And that is money, obviously, that won't go to other contested elections.
So, Vincent, I'm a big fan of what these bad guys did. So what has Paxton done that's been so bad?
He was so corrupt that he was impeached by the Texas House of Representatives, which was at the time was dominated by his own party. He has agreed to ridiculous plea deals with supporters, one of which involved sexual activity with a minor. He has, as I've alluded to before, consistently espoused conservative values and talked about his faith as a Christian, only for his wife to divorce him 18 months ago, quote, on biblical grounds. So, yeah, he's a classic one of those. He's been an election denier. I mean, he's true blue MAGA, and Trump endorsed this late. They already had the primary. Neither one got 50%. It was a three-way primary. So then they had this runoff, which was decided last week. Trump waited till the end to endorse. And Trump personally wants to endorse Paxton. Paxton is a MAGA all the way guy. The current senator who lost the primary, John Cornyn, has been pretty pro-Trump, but he is historically just kind of an actual conservative, not quite the radical that Paxton is. So people on the left see Paxton as particularly dangerous. People in MAGA see him as a much-needed corrective to the fact that, incredibly, they are now calling John Cornyn, who spent 24 years in the Senate, just tirelessly pushing Republican principles, are now calling him a rhino, a Republican in name only. So it's kind of a bizarre primary, but it shows we've talked about Trump's hold on the GOP. I think at this point now, he has endorsed 9 Republicans in Senate primaries, 101 members of the House of Representatives in their primaries, and 8 governors. The candidates that he has endorsed are 118-0.
Wow, 118 wins and no losses.
Yeah. So if you had any thought at this point that you can keep your seat by defying Trump, we have Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, who we talked about, Tom Tillis here in North Carolina, who's basically retiring rather than run again. Now even Cornyn, who 10 years ago was considered one of the most conservative members of the Senate. And he is now, by the standards of the Republican base, he's not conservative enough anymore.
Whoa, I'm actually stunned when you put it like that, Vincent. So the reason why there's so much money being pumped in, you're saying, is that because the Republicans are going to have to throw a ton of cash behind this Paxton character, who sounds like a bad guy from some Hollywood movie, to get him elected. So what's all this money going on?
TV ads, mostly.
Who's making
flyers,
TV ads?
Mailers, organizing? I mean, there's kind of all that. I mean, they have everything. We have text message advertising here, which is absolutely the worst.
You said that to me before, yeah.
Yeah, and the way the law works here, political campaigns are actually exempt from rules where you have to ask for consent before you text someone, as long as it's manual. So they just have people in campaign things just hitting, dialing numbers and hitting paste on all these messages to go out. And in theory, they're supposed to, allow you to opt out. But I'm on a Republican list for some reason. It's just whack-a-mole, right? You opt out of one, and then it just keeps coming and coming and coming. And they're constantly fundraising. I mean, I'll bet I get 10 a week from various Republican operatives asking for $50 here. And we'll put a couple on Substack because they are just so gross. Some of them, they look like outright scams. It'll be a text message that says, get your Trump $5,000 rebate check here with a link. And then you go to the link and it takes you to a fundraising site for Trump's PAC or whatever it is, or some Senate candidate. It's really kind of gross.
But that is fraud. We class that in Europe fraud. And if you do that in Ireland, you're getting a knock on the front door from the Gardaí, the police service. Or anywhere in Europe for that matter.
I think a decent DA probably could prosecute fraud. Now, there's loopholes in the law that cover political campaigns. I doubt it would actually survive appeal. But yeah, I think even here, if you text somebody and you say, click here for your check, or there's some where they text you, they go, well, I'm not asking for money. I just want to tell you something. And then you click on it and literally it's like 1,000 words. And then, by the way, I wasn't asking for money, but could you donate $35 to Paul Jones in 21st District of North Carolina? So
you mentioned also their TV ads. Who's making the ads? Is it Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg or something? Who's making the ads that they're costing that much?
This is an entire professional structure. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's a good chunk of people in D.C. that this is their job, is to work either on raising the money that you're spending or actually creating the products that the money are spent on, whether that's ads or protests or rallies, whatever it might be.
You hit the nub of the issue there, I think, Vincent. There's a whole industry there as opposed to a greater good thing going on in terms of politics. I've been introduced to people over the years. Oh, this is a Republican consultant. This is a Democrat consultant, or they're consultants for somebody or some political organization in the United States, and it's an industry as opposed to the greater good over here that the money really drives the politics in the United States as opposed to in Ireland. Is there any limits on donations in the United States that an individual or a corporation can give, or, any of that jazz?
There are limits for individual campaigns, for individual candidates. But again, for the PACs, for this advocacy, however you wanted to define that, no. I mean, what did Musk spend last year? Right. Remember Musk when he jumped in big and he was doing all the get out the vote, and he was trying to offer $1 million to people who registered to vote and all these sorts of things. I mean, again, as long as you're not coordinated with the candidate, for the candidates, there are limits, because what the Supreme Court said is something like that can create the appearance of what they call quid pro quo corruption. Right. So where it's just Elon Musk gave Donald Trump a check at a rally for $75 million. That looks like it's pure corruption, whereas at least I was going to say, in the view of the Supreme Court, when he doesn't hand Trump the check and Trump isn't at the rally, it's apparently fine. But that is kind of that's the legal hair that they split.
Okay. And sorry, I'm fascinated by this. So if I wanted to donate to Trump in the morning, what's the limit I could give him?
Well, you can't donate.
I can't personally.
You're a foreigner. No.
Well, no, I would say we have the same rule in Ireland that if you're you're a foreigner, it doesn't matter if you're Irish or American or whatever the case may be, unless you have an Irish passport or an Irish citizen, you can't donate to anybody in politics in Ireland. What's the limit that you can donate to Trump in the morning?
Why am I donating to Trump? Where'd that?
Because I'm not allowed. You're donating to Trump because I'm not allowed.
Oh, I'm the straw donor now. People go to jail for that too. The individual limit, I think it's 3,700.
Okay.
Now you can double that.
Millions. I was expecting millions.
No, it's. I mean, it is. That's what's kind of very strange about the current system. It's kind of not that much. You can double that to 7,400 because it's the primary and the general are considered different elections.
Okay.
And then I think you can give to the National Party Committee. It's a weird thing. It's 40 grand an account or 44 grand an account. And then but you can triple it. So you can get to like 130 grand.
Well, that's still serious money. That would buy you a by-election in Ireland, I think. And corporations donate.
Corporations cannot donate directly to candidates, but they can fund the super PAC. They can do their lobbying. They can do advocacy. You might remember when Trump was inaugurated, all the big tech companies contributed to that, basically the fund for the inauguration. You could also maybe write a nice sized check that could go to the candidate's library. Or if you're a foreign country, you can also donate a jumbo jet to the library.
Yeah,
that's not corrupt either. I mean, none of this, it's all just free speech, Tull. I don't really understand why you're talking about it. It's not obviously free speech. This is a silly conversation.
It's just the vast sums I struggle to get my head around, Vincent. I mean, there was billions spent on the American presidential election, wasn't there?
Harris spent $2 billion.
$2 billion.
$2 billion just on that campaign. Yeah. And she was only there for 3 months. And that's that was an abbreviated campaign, spent $2 billion. And it does go up exponentially every year. It really does. And I do want to kind of make two points about it though. At this point, I'm not entirely sure I believe what I'm about to say. 5 years ago, I did. But to your point, because the sums are just so massive, I mean, they are just so ridiculous, and because they're going up double digits every year. But there is an argument that when people say, oh, money is terrible for politics, it's not a democracy anymore, right? It's all bought, sold.
I've said that, yes. I've said that a few times, yes.
For one, that does kind of discredit the voter a little bit, because the money is kind of being like, the voters still have a job to do. I think it gets a little too simplistic when people say, oh, because they're flooding the waves of television advertising, that they're just buying votes because voters can't figure it out. If you think they can't figure it out, then not a real sign of your belief in pure democracy. But the other thing that I think is really interesting about that argument is that we actually don't have a ton of evidence that this money works. We have an industry in DC who very clearly is successful at telling donors and politicians that they have to have the money, that the money works, that it has a huge effect. But we have a lot of studies. There was one that came out in 2024 that basically say it's not clear that these big sums actually move elections. And the 2024 study was funny in the sense what it actually said was some ads work. So putting money behind ads that work, is useful. You can shift votes if you have a lot of money to put these good ads out. The problem is that no one seems ahead of time to know what the good ads are. It's reminiscent of a famous quote in business that goes back to the late 19th century. A guy named John Wanamaker famously said, half my advertising spend is wasted. I just don't know which half. And I think modern U.S. politics are very much like that. A lot of this money is wasted. A lot of this money is not moving votes. But unfortunately, everyone in that industry is incentivized to say, oh, no, you have to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone from the GOPs, they called the entire oil and gas industry over the last 3 days, right? Oh, yeah. Paxton's a weaker candidate. This guy, Tallarico, he believes in 6 genders and he can't eat a rib. We can't have that. You got to give us $20 million. But we actually, we don't know if that money moves votes. And there are a lot of examples of people who are outgunned financially, losing, one of which is actually John Cornyn in this primary. I think he raised 3 times as much money as Paxton. He got his ass kicked. It wasn't even close. Cornyn conceded at 9 o'clock, an hour after the polls closed. He raised $93 million and he was routed.
Well, I'm going to give a bit pushback there. And I think you might be right. I think you might be right about the TV ads. Okay, I think now for our American listeners, our sizable American listenership, that we have, 3 terrestrial native TV stations in Ireland. 4, was it 4? RT1, RT2, TG4, which is Irish language television, and Virgin Media. I know it sounds like something Trump may watch, but it's not. And during a general election, you will get one ad put out by the party during that general election, and that's it across those 4 channels.
That's it because that's all they're allowed to do, or that's just kind of what they think is useful, or that's what they have the budget for?
Yeah.
Why does no one in Ireland copy the U.S. strategy of just flooding the airwaves, flooding the? I mean, I'm sure you can't campaign by text there. I'm sure, right?
No, you can't.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, you can ask your mother to text the father or whatever. You're not sending mass texts,
right?
Anything like that, or sexts for that matter. If you're in the, and the reason why you're not is for the simple reasons we have rules, Vincent. We have rules and laws that every political party on the broadcasting stations gets a fair shout. You get to make your pitch. Now, if you're running, I think you have to meet a certain threshold of candidates that you're running and things like that. So Sinn Féin, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Social Democrats, Independent Ireland, they'll all have broadcasting rights, but they'll all get one pitch, one ad on television, usually around 6 o'clock news, before or after usually. And they get to make their pitch. And the simple reason why, and I saw your notes, is why don't we have billionaires in Ireland, paying off politicians or flooding the airwaves on behalf of politicians and stuff like that. It's for the simple reasons that we have rules and they're stuck to quite rigidly, When you spoke about influencing and money, there's no real data there on whether some of these ads are influencing people. I think there is data there when influencing on social media, very famously with Cambridge Analytica, scraped load of data from Facebook and micro-targeted, essentially guys sitting around in their underwear smoking cigars that like to shoot guns and they were targeted quite heavily in favor of Trump and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that actually is a fair point.
During his first campaign, and they did incredible work on micro-targeting people. You can be assured that a big part of the reason why Brexit succeeded was because of micro-targeting through social media ads via Cambridge Analytica. And Cambridge Analytica was a massive story, and people seem to have forgotten about it.
Completely.
They peddle like an incredible amount of nefarious influence in favour of candidates and people that were going to make their organisations a lot of money. It wasn't about democracy. It wasn't about the greater good. It was about peddling influence for financial gain further down the road. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I said, my argument against it is kind of a traditional conservative legal theory argument. You always should resolve in favor of free speech. In theory, at Hillary the movie, I do think in America that should be able to be shown near an election. As distasteful as I'm sure I would find the movie, as distasteful as I think David Bossie is, I mean, he's just an absolute snake. But that's our principle here, right? Even absolute snakes get to talk. Kind of can't say, oh, someone's running for president. You can't say things about them. That does feel un-American. There is a point though where you just hanging on to a legal theory at a time where the money is so vast that the problem is that whether or not actual, true, deep corruption exists, as always, I'm kind of an optimist towards institutions. I don't think it's nearly as bad as some people would believe. But when you just have this much money, the American people at some point are just going to go, well, this is all silly. It's obviously bought. Why would this industry be $20 billion a year or whatever it is if they weren't just buying our congressmen and buying our votes? So I am very sympathetic to that.
So Vincent, when you tell me things like that, and you mentioned the word 20 billion, is there a number there? Do you not think at the first 5 billion people might have went, oh, this isn't looking great. 10 billion, oh God, this is terrible altogether. 15 billion, oh, we might want to rein this in. Oh my God, this is getting out of hand. But we're up at 20 billion now. Do you think there's a cutoff point where American Democrats, people that believe in democracy, whether it be, Republicans, the Democrats, decent, centre left, centre right, centre people will go, 20 billion's enough now. Let's rein things in, pal.
I actually don't think there's a point. No. Because this is one of those issues where it's a little bit along the lines of guns that we did that episode on a couple months ago. Once the Supreme Court makes such a well-followed decision, it's almost impossible to reverse. To your point, you say, oh, all these people, we're all going to say, okay, this is nuts. We need public financing of elections, or we need caps on these super PACs, or whatever it is. You have to get a constitutional amendment to do that. I mean, the way under our system right now, that's just kind of the way it is. Your alternative is to find people on the Supreme Court who will overturn Citizens United. And that is a similarly nearly impossible thing. Even if you had polls that said 70%, 80% of Americans think we need to cut spending, you have to go one of those two ways. And it's just really, really hard, man.
Right. Okay. So you're taking instruction from 250-year-old dead men.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, they're not. Yes, that is precisely what we're doing. And we're kind of supposed to. Like, I actually think we are supposed to. That's the point of the Constitution. The point of the Constitution is it says what the government cannot do. That's what the Bill of Rights say. That's how they're written. It's very important that they're written that way, I think. And they're saying the government can't abridge free speech.
I have a question, Vincent, this constitutional one. So what do you have to do to get a constitutional amendment passed? What's involved there?
To even start, you need a 2/3 majority in Congress to propose the amendment. And then to make it worse, 3/4 of states need to ratify it. And 3/4 of states ain't doing that right now. That's incredibly high. There's not an issue in America right now that 38 states are going to agree on.
So can a candidate spend an unlimited amount of money in an election?
There may be some limits that I don't know about, particularly I think maybe like in state elections and stuff. But at the federal level, like the presidential election has a spending limit if you want to take some federal money. And there's a way that you get federal money, believe it or not, on our tax returns. There's a little box that you can check that says, I want $3 to go to the presidential election fund or whatever it's called. It's not your $3. It's just basically a box that says the government can put $3 of tax revenue into this bucket for presidential elections. If you want to get some money from that bucket, you have to agree to a spending limit, but I don't think the candidates do anymore. I know Harris didn't. Even that spending limit, I think in 2024 was $123 million. So like, that's not really, you're asking if there's a limit. And I'm going, yeah, of course there's a limit. I mean, it's $123 million. Like, that's maybe not quite the point not quite the kind of limit you were talking about.
Because in Ireland, we have multi-seat constituencies where 3 or 4 or 5 seats are up for grabs, and there may be 10 or 20, 30 people going for those 5 seats. So if you're in a 3-seat constituency, there's 3 seats up for grabs, you're only allowed to spend 38,900 euros. Okay. So if you're in a 4-seat constituency, it means it's probably a little bit bigger constituency. You're allowed 48,600 bucks, I think, euros. Okay. And in a 5-seat constituency, I'm not sure how many 5-seat constituencies are knocking around these days. Lee Shoffley was the famously big one. They took out the whole heart of the Midlands. But 58,000 euros is the limit there. So,
wow. Okay.
How far would your boys get on 58,000 euros? Not very far.
Yeah. I think you could probably run for town council in
Town crier,
rural Virginia somewhere. Yeah. Might have a fighting chance. Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the point you're making. Like, those numbers to me just sound so bizarre. And since you were saying you were asking some questions, let me ask a couple.
Okay.
I mean, so 58 grand, what spending is counting there? Because obviously Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, they have money that they are spending just to exist during the course of the year. I mean, that's dedicated spending on advertising, or is it on the entire campaign?
Like, if you're in a 5-seat constituency, but you're running probably 3 candidates, so you're actually spending about 150,000 euros. The party is spending 150,000 euros on 3 candidates, thereabouts. I've known more to be spent back in the day, but that money is going towards posters for the most part, newspaper advertising, leaflets that get put through the front door. And because we can't do
you want to tell our younger listeners what a newspaper is?
Yeah. Yes. When I looked at some of the sums been spent on the newspaper advertising in Galway, it was a good time for the 2 newspapers over there.
Yeah.
20 grand was spent between the 2 of them. So
it actually makes sense, right? You got to figure, like, they're older people and they're paying attention to the news and politics. You're actually, as weird as it sounds, it's probably a good way to target people who are actually likely to vote, right?
Yeah, of course, especially with that demographic who are not terminally online and that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
I mean?
right.
Of course, with Meta not allowing advertising anymore and stuff like that, we've pushed digital advertising in this kind of half-dead, half-alive state where it's clearly digital advertising, but it's not been paid for. Okay,
right.
It's been boosted. The Meta are not keeping track of the money you're spending, and I'd say if you gave me half an hour, I'd be able to get a load of digital advertising out there for you, and I'd be able to hide it pretty good as well. That,
I would think,
you won't be able to track it,
Right.
So the problem with digital advertising has gone into this nether region in Ireland and in Europe at the moment that you can't track what's been spent. The money essentially has been spent on traditional old-fashioned campaigning, leaflets, newspapers, posters.
There's something kind of heartwarming about that.
Just no Cambridge Analytica in Dublin West or Galway Central or whatever constituency is going on there,
There's no kind of loopholes around that spending. Like I said, I had that in our notes. Why don't the Collisons or someone like that throw 250,000 euro at a constituency or a seat? They can't do the American Super PAC thing of saying, "Oh no, we're just a nonprofit group focusing on a certain issue." That issue just happens to be immigration during a by-election featuring a candidate who's running on an anti-immigration platform, something like that.
Yeah, just
no way around that.
No, there's no way around that. I mean, an individual or corporate entity can donate a maximum of €2,500 a year to a political party. Donations to candidates from the same party, there's some rules, very strong rules in place there as well. If a donor gives €1,500 to a party or its members in a calendar year, they must submit a donation statement to SIPO, which is a Standards in Public Office.
Okay.
SIPO will go off and audit each political party's books, And every so often they throw up some gems that keep the political weirdos like me entertained, and that SIPO probably need more stronger rules.
Well, that's one of the big arguments here about the super PACs, is that the campaign contributions are public information.
Okay.
You will see that from time to time, that it pops up that, oh, this person donated to this candidate. You might see it on social media. People are either happy or sad that they did it. But these super PACs are essentially untraceable.
Right, okay. But what you're saying there, the donor list is publicly available?
Yeah, you can see who contributed to these specific campaigns.
Right, so I'm going to see your name all over the Trump donation, so Vincent, there might be Trump people practicing it.
It was only because somebody paid me to do it. I would rather plead guilty to a felony in public than plead guilty to giving contributions to Trump.
In Ireland, anonymous donations, they're strictly capped at €100. Anything over €100.
That seems reasonable. I like that idea, yeah.
Now, I've actually noticed a trend in the last European and local elections that I'm annoyed that the mainstream media, as they call themselves, or what I call them, haven't picked up on, is that GoFundMe pages are quite popular with politicians these days.
Weird.
Have you heard? Well, it is in Ireland. It's a way for them to raise money so they can run their campaigns. Popular with independent parties or people that are struggling to get money from, their own party. You have GoFundMe in the United States, but it's usually for medical bills, isn't it?
Yeah. We talked about that in our healthcare episode. Yeah, unfortunately, that's almost the primary
Ireland,
thing. Yeah.
Yes. And in Ireland, you see they pop up for healthcare and people in distress and that kind of thing. But during the 2024 local and general elections, I spotted something that there's people donating 500, 600, 700 euros on GoFundMe, and their names were anonymous.
I see. Yeah.
Right. And I spotted it across, I think, maybe 27 candidates I counted, but SIPO has done nothing about it. Standards in Public Office have done nothing about it. So, are they undermanned, underpowered there? I am not sure. In corporate donations, I think they're capped at $200, 200 to €200, I think.
Okay.
So, money influencing political parties is a big no-no when it comes to elections, and political parties are funded by the taxpayer. They're all funded by the taxpayer, Vincent.
Right.
So because we had a little issue with corruption in Ireland in the 90s, that brought down a whole lot of high-ranking politicians, and it still reverberates to this day. And as a child of the 90s, I'm scarred politically by the corruption that went on in this country, and I take a very dim view of politicians and their little corrupt behaviours, I suppose.
We have the origin story of your cynicism. It's like Bruce Wayne in the alley. We know the deep-seated trauma that has led you down your path.
Yes, the deep cynical path, Vincent. and that's why I'm agog that there's so much money just sloshing around in the United States. I should move to the United States to set up my own consulting company.
I think you would do quite well. You'd have that accent. Everybody's going to think you're smart. Pitch that you're an outsider. You're going to see things that the DC insiders don't see. But I mean, there are people who are massively, massively wealthy. I mean, 8-figure fortunes off running political campaigns and things like that. And it is just an industry. There are professional people who do this for a living. One of the questions I had reading your article is like, you don't have kind of hired campaign guns like we do here, I would guess, or no?
The central political parties or their headquarters would have that kind of, public relations people in the background pouring honey into their ear, focus groups, polling, private polling, that kind of stuff goes on at a central level.
Right.
They'll allocate a budget to each constituency. There you go. There's $100,000 go and get 2 guys elected or whatever the case may be. And then on the ground in those individual constituencies, you would have a director of elections like our friend Richard.
Right, of course, yeah.
And he'd be given a few bob and go, that's your budget, go away and do your best with it. And, but it's on the ground in the constituency. It's largely volunteer-led, people giving up their time to knock on front doors, hang posters. There's no kind of professional apparatus outside of central headquarters, so to speak, and things like that. And there's a lot of public relations companies knocking around the place offering, to get you 1 million likes on Facebook or Instagram or whatever the case. Organic, they call it as well, inverted.
Yeah.
I will tell people this, and I will warn candidates this, okay, that you might get 1 million views on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever the case may be. But there's absolutely no substitute for grabbing one person by the hand and shaking their hand and looking them in the eyes and saying, I'm going to do this for you. I'll sort this for you.
For all the jokes, that is the one big difference here, particularly at the federal level. We talked about this a little bit before, just the size of the constituency. In Ireland, you can make it an effort to personally meet a lot of the people that might vote for you. In the U.S., even for the House of Representatives, you're talking about a district of, at this point, 600,000 people, over 300,000 potential voters. It's just very, very difficult to do the meet and greet stuff. Anecdotally, I think post-pandemic, that has gone away a little bit. And but that may also just be function of the money too, right? There is so much money available to you, even if you're running for a House seat in rural Virginia or wherever it is, that it might just be easier for your directors. Let's just sit here.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need to go to the county fair and, eat barbecue and shake hands. Let's put 25 grand on Facebook.
And you're able to micro-target these people on Facebook. I'm looking to target a middle-aged man in Raleigh, North Carolina, who's, a centrist dad, likes a beer at the weekends. They can scrape your Facebook page and come up with, hit all your bloody buttons and have an ad tailored to you. Yep. So if there's 100,000 Vinces in North Carolina, they would, the consultants or people, nefarious people like me, will come up with an ad for you and we will micro-target those people for you.
I'm sure.
You could be in DC, you never have to leave your office, and you can micro-target these people in a way that you couldn't do in the past, where you'd have to go down, eat your corn dogs at the local state fair, shake some babies, kiss some hands. Now it's, digital era that we're living in. You can do everything from your laptop, no matter where you are in the world.
Including get famous enough to run for office in the first place, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have your guy in LA at the moment. He's some influencer guy.
Spencer Pratt, former reality television star, is running for mayor of Los Angeles, and he's still not favored to win if you talk to the experts, which I am not about LA, but he is. He has run a pretty credible campaign, and I think at this point, at the very least, he still has a shot. Really fascinating story, actually. I think it says a lot about national politics, even though it comes across, I think, as a little bit of a goofy, look at California, right? They elected Schwarzenegger governor, and now they're running a reality TV star for mayor of Los Angeles. But there are some interesting themes there, I think, that we might explore on a subsequent episode. Because we had like six themes on this episode. We detoured to the weather, and I think we made it through one. So we'll kick the rest of it back to next episode, because we do have so much good stuff to talk about. But I thought this was great, really illuminating, I think.
Before we finish, Vincent, you ran the numbers on the dollar numbers and the cost per voter compared to the United States and Ireland. I thought this was interesting. So if you want to tell people about what you did there.
Yeah, I actually did think that was interesting, because we were kind of joking about, €300,000 versus 129 million for a single primary. But actually, if you run the math on a per voter basis, it might actually be less than I thought. So if you look at that primary, which again was the most expensive primary in history, that record's going to be broken probably in 2 years, but they spent, you said 129 million. There's 6.6 million registered Republican voters in Texas. It's also an open primary there. Anyone can vote. So they were probably targeting some independents who lean right as well. So if you assume that there was like a base of 10 million potential voters in that primary, they spent $13 per voter.
Right.
That €300,000 or $350,000 US budget for those constituencies, I think we thought like there was probably, like 130,000 registered voters across the two or something like that. So it actually still comes out to like $2.50 a voter.
Yeah.
So, the gap sounds like, we spend 1,000 times what Ireland does. On a per voter basis, if you include the general in Texas, I mean, it's going to be like 10 times what you guys spent. But quite honestly, I thought it was going to be like 110 times, right? Like our money was completely and totally incomparable to you. So it does still matter, in Ireland, I guess, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, it's just the vastness of the numbers in the United States. The war for everything in Ireland, that's exactly what's going on there.
And I do think that the per voter numbers, are interesting. The fact that the spending is now at numbers which I think are literally inconceivable. What's $1 billion? Like, as human beings, we actually don't know. Like, you can't, you have a sense of what that number is, but you can't really imagine it.
No.
You know, I mean, when you're like 9, you imagine it and you're like, oh, I'm going to go get $1 billion and go jump in it like Scrooge McDuck or whatever. But we don't, like, grown-ups don't know what that number means. And so I think the fact that these numbers are just getting inconceivable, if the average voter hears there's a, $250 million spent on this election, the average voter's going to go, oh, well, that's rigged then. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody got bought. I don't know who got bought. I don't know who was trying to buy them, but yeah, that's not a fair election. I mean, a lot of people are just going to knee-jerk say that. And I might want to argue with them, but I'm old enough to know it's probably not going to work.
So what you're going to say, nothing's going to change anytime soon, my friend.
Yeah, I'm adopting your cynicism. It's contagious. It's come through the recording platform.
It's terrible that I'm rubbing off on you like this, Vincent.
Yeah. Well, in your defense, look, this is not a problem I can blame on you. And I think the cynicism is growing with the amount of money. And it will be interesting to see next year when this presidential election kicks in with 2 contested primaries. The numbers that we are going to hear between mid-2027 and November 2028 are going to make $129 million look like a drop in the bucket, quite honestly. It is going to be spectacular in D.C. Yeah. If you can afford a home in D.C., I would go buy one because real estate values are going to be going up in the next 24 months. There are going to be a lot of flush people in Washington, D.C. come January 2029.
Well, it's not like us to finish a podcast on a deeply cynical note, Vincent.
No, not at all. Yeah.
I mean, you make me feel like a poor European when we talk about monies for elections and things like that.
That's right. We finally proved the Wall Street Journal, right?
Yeah, we're very poor. We're very poor when it comes to elections. But rules are rules, Vincent. And until somebody decides to break those rules, my hands are tied in what I can spend on elections in Ireland.
That's fair. I get it.
So, on that very deeply cynical note, we'll try and be more upbeat for our next episode. And thank you to our listeners for our jumbled up recording schedule these last 7 days. By-elections mess with that also. So, thank you, listeners, and thank you, new listeners. And I'm Tull from the Irish Politics Newsletter.
I'm Vince Martin.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye now.